One second, I think we might be on. We might have a few lagging issues, but I think we're on, Antony. Thank you for joining me on the Wheel Talk Life podcast today, mate. I've heard
No
a lot
problem.
about you from our mutual friend Stuart, and it's a great to get somebody on who's massively into the same amount of clothing and love for it like me. How are you, Anthony? How are you, pal?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you, Joe?
Thank you for coming on. I'm all good, pal. And
Good.
like I say, let's get straight into it in terms of
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
both fashion fanatics. I just want to know your earliest memories of fashion and, what it was like growing up in terms of observing fashion and people around you, and then what sort of made you get into it, if that's all right.
Yeah, as a brother of five other brothers, I didn't really have a lot of money to buy fashionable clothes when I was young. Like everybody else, I suppose I got my first pair of Adidas. I would say around about 15, maybe, which was at like everybody else kick.
Yeah,
And then once I left school, because I know I wanted to start wearing at that time, which would have been Fila, Sergio, Lacoste, Alessi. I knew I wouldn't be able to afford that unless I once until I left school and got myself my own job, which is when I started buying the clothes and stuff like that and trainers. Bearing in mind there wasn't a lot of trainers to choose from back in the day. There was only a few different pairs: Samba jeans and Kick and Bermuda and Tahiti and stuff like that. There weren't a load to choose from.
yeah. I was just gonna say, can you remember the first time, like you say, obviously being able to get your first paycheck or whatever, and what you first bought, or the feeling that uh, got from wearing as a youngster myself in my 20s at the moment. I remember obviously watching the firm when I was younger, seeing Bex walk through with Cool and the gang, and seeing LSE suit. I'm thinking that was cool as all, and wanting to get it. And it's gradually evolved over the years. Myself and my love for it. Can you remember your earliest sort of wearing of it, and how you first felt when you got it, and when you first, you
I
know?
think one of the most prominent things that I ever got was obviously as a young lad, me and a friend of mine used to do a little bit of shoplifting back in the day, which was to do with the clothes, obviously in the
Yeah,
Greater Manchester area. But
yeah,
the first thing I remember buying was a full velour Fila Turinda tracksuit. I
yeah,
remember buying that and thinking I was the smartest kid on the planet. But I'd have been about 17, 18 then.
yeah,
So I remember buying that first time round. Yeah, that was felt pretty smooth in that from dressing in quite a lot of hand me downs as a kid to then
yeah,
dressing in stuff like that.
yeah.
So
In terms of the era and the time, obviously you grew up in when the clothes was most prominent. Could you tell like it was a movement that was, slowly sort of growing, and everyone was sort of on the same wavelength for?
not really back then. No, no, not really. I think when I started going to the football is when I started to see a lot of people wearing a similar sort of rig out, with like I say, the Sergio and the Alessi and stuff like that. But it was more when I started going to watch Manchester United play that I seen it on the terraces and stuff like that. The trainers always, because it was a thing at school that everybody had smart trainers, apart from someone like me who didn't have smart trainers because we couldn't afford it. But once I'd left school, like I say, and got a job and did a little bit of pilfering, shall we say, I started to see it in the football when I used to go to football. Yeah.
You mentioned there in terms of obviously originally not having, the finances to be able to afford it, and then obviously finding ways to do so, which I hear in the documentaries as well, in places like Liverpool on the documentaries on YouTube, where they go over to places like Italy and obviously
Yeah.
rob the shops and bring back loads of trainers and that, which I think is cool. I know in today's PC society they be saying, you can't do that. But
Yeah.
back in the day, you got to do what you got to do to get
Which is
what
what,
you,
yeah,
to a degree.
which is what me and my friend were doing. We was taking sort of not to the extent the scousers were doing across Europe and that, nothing like that at all, which was great as far as I was concerned. We used to say get 4 or 5 t-shirts, Alessi t-shirts, and sell two and get a bit of money and then keep one each. and then maybe buy a pair of trainers with the money of what we used to do. We used to do it on a small scale and do it like, because there wasn't a lot of money about, and we all wanted the smart gear, so that's how we sort of managed to get some of it anyway. Not all the time, because as we're going through work and earning more money, was be able to buy it and not go around stealing it.
Do you think your environment shaped your desire for the clothing range and also the need to be resourceful as well? Like, there's so many sort of bright and brave young people, and people from working class backgrounds. I feel I've got something different about us. You wouldn't catch someone from down London who's a Tory doing that. You get what I'm trying to say? I feel like because obviously we know what it's like to have now compared to others, that shapes our personality
Yeah.
and our resourceful
Well,
nature. But
we have seen this week that plant pot Rishi Sunak with a pair of Samba on, haven't we?
oh wait, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he's had a pair of Samba on. Yeah, he looks alright. Dickhead, but there you go. But yeah, I suppose it has. I mean, like I say, once I left school and, like I say, started working and wanting to wear that type of clothes, because the people I'd seen always looked smart, and then, like I say, I always wanted to sort of wear that kind of clothes when I was at the football. So yeah, it sort of shaped me a bit, that, and seeing other people wearing it made me want to wear it, and I've been the same ever since. Although I don't really wear much Sergio or Sergio or Lacoste or Alessi now, but back then it was the tennis stuff was pretty prominent,
What is another one for you as well?
especially for
I always feel like football, fashion, and music just seem to intrinsically go hand in hand. Why do you think that is?
I'm not too sure. Do you think that's more of a northern thing or spread across
Yeah,
the? Do you think it's more northern, the music, the football, and the clobber?
yeah, I would say so. I think again, I suppose it goes back to that resourcefulness, doesn't it? I think a lot of youth subcultures, and whether it be acid house, casual culture, modern rockers, etc., hippie era, they come out of boredom and identity. Would you say your clothing taste has helped shape your identity at all?
I suppose it has to a degree, yeah. I suppose it has to a degree. But don't forget, this all started just when I was 16. So I suppose, and I've kept with it pretty much the same uh, all the way through my life, even to this present day. So I suppose it has in a way, yeah. And music, I've got to be honest, I wasn't wasn't into the music as much as other people, though. I mean, I do like me, I love my music, but I wasn't overly struck on music when I was in my early days. I was more interested in the clothing and going to the football. The music came sort of third, if you know what I mean, but wasn't that bothered. I did have a decent record collection, but it wasn't really massively thing. But it did go hand in hand with everything, but it was never sort of something I was prominently looking out for.
Why do you think these, in terms of football? I know this is primarily uh, a fashion sort of and culture debate, but I suppose football, links into it. Why do you think there's such, uh, you know, iconic sort of characters that come out of that era, and particularly Manchester? I I don't proclaim to be a Man United fan. In fact, when I was a kid, I would say, apologies for you. I used to hate them more than Blackburn because they won everything in the time that you guys was on top. But I just think, like remember thinking at the age of about 12, and my stepdad Sean, who's no longer here, telling me about Eric Cantona and watching that goal where he dinked it over at keeper and thought, you know what, this guy's cool as fuck. I like him, and he could stand pretty much like Ian Brown. He could stand there drinking a cup of tea, and I would love it.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
why is there so many characters? Would you say?
Tough question. That I don't know. Obviously, the music's synonymous with Manchester anyway. There's a lot of Manchester bands. and Liverpool as well. They've got some great bands in Liverpool over the years.
Yeah,
I think it just goes with the northern thing, really. The music, the football, and the thing. It all sort of ties in well together. And there obviously is some iconic figures out there who've, like you say, Ian Brown and obviously the Gallagher brothers and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of iconic figures via that because they integrate themselves into football and the fashion, don't they? So it all comes as one sort of package, doesn't it? Really.
absolutely. I mean, this isn't even on the question, but if you wanted to maybe talk about your days following Man United on the terrace, says I often feel like when I go to away games with Burnley, even though I just went at the weekend and to us against Everton and we're absolutely fuming at Ionic Mirich's mistake, which cost us a 1-0 loss. I often go to away games and feel like I couldn't care less whether we lose or not. Yes, I'm angry for about 10 minutes, but I often feel like going to football and sort of, music events is like a social awareness and observation experience because I don't drink or, can't get off my head or something like that because of my condition and stuff. Not saying that kind of head and sick behaviour is right, but that's what majority of people do. I'm more observatory because of that. And like, I just wondered if you wanted to talk about your early days following Man United, and
I mean, I used to enjoy the away days a lot more than going to the home games. I've got to be honest. But again, as you said, the away games are more of a sort of like a break from the normal life. Whereas a home game, you leave at 5 o'clock tea time if it's a midweek game, and you're back in for 10:30, 11 o'clock. Whereas a away day in London, shall we say, is you're away for a couple of days, so it was always a better experience. There was always more beer flowing. There was meeting different people who you'd ever met at the home games. So yeah, it was. I enjoyed the away days a lot.
in
I've
terms of
been to.
obviously,
I've been
go on,
to.
sorry.
I've been to. I think I've been to. I think I've probably been to every ground in the Premiership anyway over the years. Anfield was obviously one of my favourites because of the atmosphere and stuff. But Leeds as well, that was always pretty sketchy there.
Yeah, I can imagine because I know the historical sort of rivalry with Leeds. What do you? Obviously, I know you said off camera and that in terms of not necessarily too focused on the word casual culture, but like again, this isn't a. This is testing my media skills, thinking of questions off the top of my head. I'm not even looking at my phone, which is how much I, really enjoy talking about this. What like key ingredients do you think uh, are needed for such a movement to kick off? Because this is what I'm having to adapt to as a young person myself. Um, in terms of for years I was very much stuck in the era of being obsessed in the era that you was in purely because there doesn't seem to be anything going off these days for people like myself. To grab onto and think, yeah, this is ours. You know what I mean? So, like, what do you think the key ingredients to like some like this kind of fashion and movement and football? What
I
pieces it
think
all together?
the ingredient for me was definitely through the 80s. I think that's
Yeah.
what established it, and from then it's gone from there to where it is today, which obviously isn't the same as the 80s because of social media, being able to buy stuff online and stuff like that. But I think the 80s was where it all, which is obviously where it began, and I think everything stems from that, and it's branched off from that. I don't think you can ever do that again. I don't think there'll be a different movement. It'll just be from the 80s. It stemmed from that, and it won't be duplicated. I don't think. I can't see it anyway. I think the 80s was where the movement began, as if you want to call it a movement, the casual scene, if you want to call it that. And I don't, yeah, that cannot be duplicated. That. And I think everything stems from that to where we are today.
Yeah. And why do you think, obviously, I know the movement ended nearly 40, 30 years ago now. Why do you think so many people like myself uh, are still into this stuff, and sort of bringing it through and, hopefully seeing it evolve? Because I know there's a few numpties who's my age, but the majority of people, pretty sound in that. Why do you think it's stood the test of time?
Well, I don't know why it's stood the test of time, but when I think back to my dad, my granddad, until I left school, they all dressed the same.
Yeah.
Even my dad and my granddad dressed the same, which was pants,
Mm.
shirt, you know what I mean, the local Labour club for a pint or whatever. And so it changed from them. And I think because it's especially now because it's easy access to get certain brands like the one you're wearing there, the Special brand, because we've got the internet. I think a lot more people like to wear that casual type of clothing rather than a shirt and a pair of pants and a sensible pair of shoes. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably more why that a lot of people enjoy it, and it looks, especially if they're involved in football, whether they go to the games or not, or don't go to many games, they're still interested in wearing the clothes so they can feel the part, even if they're sat on the settee watching it or in the pub watching it. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
wherever I go for a drink, which is not very often these days, most of my mates will be wearing smart casual clothes, as you want to call it. You know, nice t-shirt, polo shirt, Stone Island, whatever. Pair of jeans, nice pair of Adidas or whatever. You know what I mean? So, and that's been the same all the way through. And I think because there was no internet and no social media back when my dad was whatever, they just wore the same sort of clothes. You could actually put my dad and my granddad next to each other, and you would think they were probably nearly the same age. You know what I mean? And that was what it was like back then. They all used to do the same sort of things, tinker with the cars on a Sunday, etc. So they were stereotypical. And then once the 80s arrived and the football and the music and hooligans and all that, it sort of changed. And that was where it all started for me. And obviously, as time's gone on, everybody can get access to whatever they want to wear. And not many people wear nice, sensible shoes and pants and a collared shirt for doing anything these days.
I
It's
remember.
an
Go
era
on,
thing,
sorry.
isn't it? It's an era thing, isn't it? Obviously, different eras do different things.
Absolutely, and I've never sort of subscribed to the other sort of genres of my era currently. I remember being at college there. We just think college about 8 years ago, and my mum buying me a pair of Jim King, what do you call it, jogging bottoms. It's safe to say, in a nice way, I told her to take them back because I've always felt like inclined and with this clothing, as you say, what I'm wearing now, it's not even necessarily about the clothes for me, which we'll get onto in a moment. It's about the connection and the feeling part of something. How
Yeah, yeah.
would you say, fashion and in particular your taste has evolved over the years?
I would say not really that much. I've always wore Adidas, Nike, Reebok, uh, denim jeans, and bit of Stone Island, bit of CP. Obviously, later in life, because obviously it wasn't that prominent when I was, or I couldn't get hold of it anyway when I was 16, 17, 18, so forth. So it's not really changed a lot. No, I would say not that much. No, I've only ever bought my own clothes. No one's ever bought my clothes for me, like presents or anything like, because I won't allow it. Because
Mm.
like you say, you get a pair of Jim King tracky bottoms, won't you? So I bought my own clothes, and I'm pretty stayed loyal to what I've worn since leaving school to today.
Here's a question for you. What do you consider when piecing the perfect outfit together? Like, does it have to match? Because my mum has a go at me because she's very, even though she got me Jim King years ago and that, she's very good when it comes to fashion, and she thinks like everything has to match. Whereas I think if I like the look of something, I just wear it. What's your opinion on that?
Well, you can't go wrong with a pair of denim jeans anyway. So whether they whatever brand they are, whatever colour they are, not really. I don't do a bit of matching. No, it's just whatever takes me fancy, especially footwear. Just rotate what I've got, whether that be red ones, yellow ones, whatever. Just what I fancy that day. Doesn't necessarily all have to match. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just whatever I fancy wearing that day.
And the beauty of this era, no, the beauty of this clothing range, should I say, and the love for it is that it's giving more people ideas to start up on their own and experiment with different styles and things like that. Are there any independent brands or anything that you like the look of at the moment. I tell you, I'd love to get on this podcast. This guy called Hawkwood Mercantile on Instagram. I think his jackets are absolutely mint.
I've got one. I've got one of his jackets.
Oh, superb.
I've got one of his smock shirts, smart, like a turquoise
Yeah.
colour. It's nice, yeah. He does some nice gear.
Yeah.
Richard, I think, isn't it? Was it Richard?
Yeah, I think so. Richard
Yeah.
at Hawkwood
Yeah.
Mercantile. So I'm giving him some sponsorship. What do you call it? Coverage here. But yeah, are there any sort of independent brands that you like to support, or perhaps do you love finding a bargain? Or I know Fenners who has Life Jacket. I've got Fenners on it. He likes to restore or pleat the clothing or share them on and things like that. Are there any independent
It's just
brands?
whatever. Yeah, I don't necessarily buy high-end brands all the time, but yeah, I suppose. I mean, I've got hiking gear that's Berghaus and stuff like that, but I just across the board really don't really have a special preference for anything in particular. If I like it and I can afford it, then and it's going to suit me, then I'll buy it.
Yeah, and obviously being well travelled and going across the country, following United, and hopefully as well abroad. I know you do hiking and stuff. In the times that you've been abroad, or I know people who say when they go to Italy they think Italians are really cool in the way they dress. Do you take any inspiration from any other countries or any other sort of genres and perhaps mix and match with it, or?
No, not really. No, I mean I've been to Italy a couple of times. They dress totally different than they're always smartly dressed, as though they're going out for dinner. But no, not really. No. I don't look for inspiration for stuff like that. But I'm not saying I don't look. I don't see it. But no, I don't really know. No.
And I can see behind you there is mounds and mounds of trainers. It's trainer porn. It's trainer heaven. It's my version of cream eggs, because as well as trainers, I also love chocolate, and
So do I.
honestly, it looks like heaven to me, that, mate. How is your training collection a gradual process that you built up, or?
This is probably my fourth trainer collection over the years. I've lost a few. Yeah, one of them I lost about, I don't know, maybe the last one I lost was about 12 years ago, where it was stolen. Which was there was a lot of OG stuff in that in as well. Maybe about 50 pairs, 40 pairs of OG stuff, which obviously are not replaceable really. I've replaced one or two pairs. But yeah, it's about my fourth or fifth collection. This is probably the biggest collection I've had in one go. I've had smaller collections in this with a few hundred pairs, but this is probably the most amount I've ever had in one particular collection.
And is there a system to the way you can you identify? Say, for example, obviously, I'm not going to make you do it. Say, for example, if you went and blindly had a look at picking out a pair, like, is there a system in place?
Yeah.
Where everything is and stuff.
So I'll show you this. I'll show you the system. So if I pick these, for instance, Topanga. Yeah. I'll put them on, and because I've got a few pairs of Topanga, I'll turn the box that way around. So when I come to put them back in the box, I know where the box is. That's the only system. That's the only system I have.
Fair play, simplicity.
Because otherwise, I'm stood here going like that, looking around and shaking all the boxes to see whether they're empty. So that's what I do. That's the only sort of system I have. Because if you start putting everything in alphabetical order and all the jeans together and all the Topanga together and all the Bermuda together, it becomes obsessive then. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. Because I know if I start it, it'll continue, and I'm not doing that.
Do you have your eye on anything at the moment that you're looking to buy, or?
No, not really. No, not at the moment. I'm just no, there isn't anything. I don't think there's anything knocking around that I'm interested in right now. I managed to get a pair of Dublins, but I've got them, so I'm not.
Oh yeah, I saw the Dublins. They're the brown ones, aren't they?
Yeah, I got them. I went to the event, and that was a pretty good event as well. But yeah, I've got nothing that's standing out right at the moment.
when you said there about the event and that's one thing that's you've smoothly got us on to the next question there because that's one thing I've noticed about yourself. You built up a very loyal following on Instagram for your love of clothing and also Adidas trainers. Why do you think that is? Like obviously, I'm not asking you to blow your own trumpet because anyone feels a bit weird when talking about themselves, but let's talk about a bit about the Adidas community on Instagram. Like,
To be honest, I don't know that much about it. To be honest, I just the follow. I mean, don't forget, I've been on Instagram. I think it came in 2010. Instagram, I think. I've been on it since 2012. So I've been on
yeah,
it 12 years. So it's built up itself over that period of time. I reckon if I started Instagram now, I would get nowhere near that because it's just the way it is. But yeah, so I've been on it 12 years. So it took a while, but obviously it built itself up quite quickly when the first ever special event was in London, which I was at, where they had the first showcasing of some of the old, the older trainers, the OG stuff. And obviously I was there, so I was taking pictures and posting them, and it sort of mushrooms my Instagram, unbeknown to me, mushroomed my Instagram, which obviously got me a few thousand followers from a few hundred to a few thousand within 2 or 3 days, and so it's
yeah.
continued to build from that. It's not about followers and likes and stuff though. For me, I don't. It is what it is, I don't. I don't do it for that type of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm totally the same in terms of, as you know, I don't know if you know, Stuart came to my house the other week, all the way from Birmingham,
Stuart
and,
Mills.
and yeah, we met each other through the fact that I obviously interviewed Gary a couple of years back for my first ever episode, and like I speak to some people who like in and around Spezia and that, and I consider them as friends, and sometimes we don't even necessarily speak about trainers all the time, but that's the power of being into something
Yeah, yeah.
as well. Is that something you agree with? Like,
Yeah, of
you
course. You
know,
don't always have to. I mean, I see Gary, Gary Aspin every now and again. I also speak to Gary Watson and Gary Webster. So when I see them, it's not always talking about the special release and what's coming and all that. It's just general talk about stuff, football, having a drink together, having a laugh. So yeah,
yeah.
if you don't have to have a busman's holiday, so to speak, when you meet the people who are involved in it, no, not at
Yeah.
all.
And when you get invited to these events and stuff, I know I've been to a couple myself, but it's a bit like obviously at first, I personally think it's a bit surreal. Especially the last one I went to, I ended up seeing like Dennis Owen just stood next to me looking at a pair of trainers. I thought that's Dennis Owen. He used to play for Wolves and Man United and that. And sometimes it's like mad to think that something that you love can snowball into something that's pretty cool. And it is like,
Yeah.
what do you think when you go to these events?
Yeah, I enjoy some of these events. There's obviously a few sort of, shall we say, well-known people at some of these events who you bump into, but just because someone is, say, maybe a professional footballer or a singer, shall we say, or an artist or whatever, doesn't mean they can't be into the same sort of thing as anybody else, does it? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, you know what I mean? So if they like trainers and they like fashions, there's no reason for them not to be there. But yeah, there's always one or two people there. I get invited to one or two events. Don't go to them all, but I get invited to a few.
What I like about you, obviously, I know we've only been sort of, speaking over the last couple of days, you're very sort of, relaxed and there's a warmth to you. And that's my next question in terms of when you do your hiking, you're very big on the benefits of hiking, obviously doing bits of stuff where you raise money for different causes. Can you talk a bit about like why you got into hiking? Because it's something that I agree with massively. I'm currently sat in an off-road wheelchair that I've had for about 18 months now, and although I physically can't use my legs, I love being outside, because my head's very much all over the place, and I think I've got like severe ADHD or something because I can never sit still, like, or maybe I'm sat still physically, but my head's always buzzing around. Do you get one?
Yeah,
But when I'm outside, it calms me down. I can't
yeah.
explain it.
It has that effect. Yeah, it does. It has a calming influence on you. When did I get into it? I got into it quite a few years ago. I used to play football myself, but stopped playing, and then never did anything for about 10 years. Put a load of weight on and just become lazy, drinking too much, as in going out drinking. Not I don't drink in the house. And then I decided to do some form of activity to get healthier and fitter, and took up hiking. And then I do some extreme stuff each year, or what some people might not call it extreme, but some big hikes, some big climbs. And while I'm putting myself through that, I might as well do it for charity, which is what I do. So yeah, they've got this year's coming up. Hopefully by the end of August, I'll be going to. I've booked the flights to Bordeaux to do the Camino de Santiago. It's about 491 miles across from the French Pyrenees over to Santiago in Spain. It's like a pilgrimage. I'll do that for charity. I'll hopefully do it in about 30 days.
Oh, class, so you're staying over there while you're doing this
I'll be staying in
gradual.
hostels, a lot hostels along the way, in like the quintessential French villages and little Spanish villages. I'll be staying in hostels all along the way.
Like, would you say doing these challenges is much a mental challenge as well as a physical? Because I bet there's times on the treks that you've done. I think Stuart was telling me some of the the treks that you've done highly challenging. Um, you know, has how was it tough at times, or is it tough at times? But do you see it's like a sort of mental challenge positively, and obviously spreading good work as a result of doing that, like you say?
I would say more often than not, it's more of a mental challenge, especially because I do a lot of it on my own. So yeah, it's definitely more of a mental challenge. Although physically, it's quite demanding as well sometimes. But yeah, mentally, it can be a bit tough at times, especially being out in the wilderness on your own while camping and whatever, and no one to talk to. Sometimes not seeing anyone for days. You've got no phone life, or sorry, no phone signal, should say. So you can't really speak to anybody on the phone. So yeah, it can be mentally challenging, 100%. Yeah, but I'm all right with it though. I get through it all every time.
Do you think it's a bit cathartic? I find being outside. I often go for 2 3 hour walks on my own sometimes because what do you call it? I find it so stimulating, and it's better that I try to always. I always talk about this in the podcast. I try to always fight against the perception that people with disabilities are sat at home, watching loose women, having Maltesers, etc., etc. And what I mean. I try to always keep stimulated. And would you say it's cathartic for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've all got our own issues, our own problems. We've all got bills to pay and work to do. So sometimes it's nice to break away from all that and just go outside and where nothing can touch it. And yeah, it's good for definitely good for the mind. Absolutely,
Yeah. Have you seen
absolutely.
that artist geezer fella?
Yeah,
That's just
well done to him. That's unbelievable. Been following a little bit of that since he sort of started it. He finished it. Was it today?
yeah, yeah.
Apart from the guy in the yellow t-shirt breaking the finishing line before him, everything. Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah.
every, yeah, he shouldn't have been doing that. But yeah, he's done unbelievable what he's done. That guy, unbelievable, unbelievable.
but but yeah, just
Hats off to him, I say.
absolutely. Sorry, there's a bit of laggy sometimes, so uh, accidentally interrupting in that. But can I just say thank you very much for coming on today, mate? I've been
No
following you
problem.
for long while, and I think this just shows the power of trainers and the power of community. You know, Stuart putting me in touch with yourself. Big shout out to Stuart, fellow Claret, but he's a Brummie as well and a fan. That's the only negative about Stuart is his accent goes through him a bit. My accent goes through him. Burnley
I
talking
spoke
about
to him
that.
earlier. I spoke to
Yeah,
him earlier today. I've got some
yeah, no,
trainers to send for him.
good stuff. But yeah, any parting words, Antony, before we end recording and speak afterwards?
Yeah. Say again, mate.
Have you got any parting words before we end the recording and speak
Uh,
afterwards?
no, just everybody stay safe and enjoy what they do. Stay
Nice
positive.
one. Nice
And
one, pal. Cheers.
they are only trainers.
Good shout, good shout. Nice one, mate.
All
Cheers.
right. See you soon. Ta-ra.
Hello, don't know why I was leaning into the camera there. Now I'm leaning back out of shot. There's Tyson Fury's face in the background, for anyone wondering. I have gone off him a little bit. He's started to annoy me a bit, to be fair. But Tyson Fury, if you do want to come on to the podcast, let me know, pal. This is just a quick message just to say I hope you enjoyed the latest episode of the WheelTalklife podcast, whichever one it is that you may have been watching at the moment. You might not have been watching any at all. My phone's just buzzed on my leg to distract me on this video. Anyway, thank you once again for tuning in. If you did like the videos that you have been watching, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel and share it amongst your friends. Nice one.